What does the FedNow news mean for Hedera? Let's discuss. So hey everyone, welcome back to Upside Down Data. Today I want to talk about this news that just came out about FedNow showcasing an app that's built on Hedera and what that might mean for Hedera Hashgraph going forward. So if you were following the markets, you might have noticed that HBAR is up pretty dramatically today. Currently, as I record this, up about 13.5%, but it was up as high as about 18.5% going up to the high here. And this is all off of this news that the Federal Reserve, through its upcoming FedNow payment system, showcased a drop that uses Hedera Hashgraph as its rails. It's basically a platform that uses crypto rails to enable microtransactions, so really down to potentially very small amounts of transactions at very low cost for merchants. And you can actually just see it if you just go over here and look at directly at the website, the FedNow website here. We can see drop listed right here. And if we go ahead and look at the listing, there's some information about what drop is, what the actual service is. Basically, it's a way of letting customers pay directly from their bank accounts to merchants as an alternative to credit card payments. And this is something I've talked about in the past that is a place where crypto has a big advantage over something like credit cards in terms of how the experience is for merchants. So merchants, as it exists now with credit cards, have to pay very high transaction fees for every single transaction they accept. It can be as high as 3% on every single transaction, which, as you can imagine, really would cut into the profit margin for a merchant. So they would much rather have a system where they're not having to pay that kind of fee. And crypto allows that. Crypto is, as we know, very cheap, especially on Hedera. Transactions are, fractions of a penny. And this is basically a service that allows people to integrate with their bank, just basically directly from their bank, make payments to merchants, and it uses Hedera as the rails for that to happen. And this goes to kind of that broader theme that people have talked about with crypto, where we're probably eventually going to move to a world, or we could eventually move to a world where a lot of things are powered by decentralized ledgers like Hedera Hashgraph, but it's all kind of behind the scenes. People don't interact with it directly. They don't even necessarily know that they're using crypto, but they are. And the reason for it is that it's more efficient, it's cheaper, and it's in a lot of ways better. The other big advantage of this over something like credit cards is settlement time. So this is something that it says down here would be an end of day settlement. So basically for transactions that happened over the day, then merchants would get access to all those funds at the end of the day. And that's not instant. So that's not as instant as crypto payments, which, under Hashgraph are seconds for the funds to transfer, and then it's there and it's settled and it's done. This is a little bit more delayed, but that's still faster than you get with a lot of other things. I think a lot of people don't realize with credit cards, you don't see those funds immediately. Sometimes you have to wait over a day or multiple days before those funds actually land in your account. And of course, with just capital efficiency, it's better to have access to all the funds that you're owed immediately rather than having to wait for them. That money, while it's in limbo, is basically it's worthless. You're not able to do anything with it. You can't actually put it to use. So the faster the settlement time, the more efficient you can be with your capital. So those are some advantages of it, and that's what this drop is trying to take advantage of. Now, it's important to mention what this was, though, this listing of it on this site and what it means and what it doesn't mean. Because obviously the market took this as a very bullish sign, but I think we also just need to be clear about what this actually means. So this is the showcase. So this is something that FedNow has, that basically just a place where people who would be looking to use the service can go and look at other services that might be relevant, that might be integrating with FedNow themselves, and which ones people might be interested in. So there's a whole bunch of ones. There's credit card companies in here. There's a whole bunch of things that you might recognize as you go through this list. And they very explicitly say down at the bottom here that listing one of these potential participants of the FedNow service does not mean that they are giving an express endorsement of it. So them listing it here in the showcase does not mean that they are endorsing it or giving their stamp of approval on it. So officially, that's the case. So that's something that's important to keep in mind. That being said, though, they still did list it. And so that means something. So even though they're not officially endorsing it, the fact that they listed it means that they're at least taking it seriously. And they think that's worth putting on their showcase for other people to see, people who might be wanting to look into the FedNow service and what things are available through it. Drop being one of the providers that's going to be integrating with FedNow, or at least has plans to, that people might be interested in. And I think that's really what the market got bullish on. It's not that this is going to be that Hedera is going to become the rails of FedNow, or that there's going to be some massive partnership or anything like that. It's more that this platform that uses Hedera is the real deal, and it's getting at least recognition of that by being put on here, even if it's not being officially endorsed. And so really, it's a first step. It is not something that really fundamentally changes the landscape. It's not something like that's going to bring trillions of dollars of transaction value onto Hedera in any short amount of time. But it's a first step. And it's also a good proof of concept that a network like Hedera Hashgraph, which is capable of very high throughput and high security and all of those beneficial things, that is being used by these enterprises, which are then themselves going out and doing things that might get adoption, which then would funnel more usage into the network. And that's ultimately what Hedera has been trying to do for a very long time. I talked about this before. Hedera really tried to set itself up as being an enterprise blockchain to be used in real-world use cases by companies as one of the big things they pushed. And this is just one more step in that direction. So I think that's the other reason the market might be reacting bullishly here, is that the thesis for Hedera Hashgraph is that it would be able to realize that sort of thing. This is another step in that direction, which is a good sign, is another point of that thesis remaining valid and not being invalidated. An invalidation would just be that no one's using it for any of those purposes, and that entire idea or that thesis would not be relevant anymore, but that's not been the case. And of course, this is also happening in the backdrop of where Hedera is humming along at a very high transaction per second, highest among L1s that are out there. And this is currently very concentrated in which use cases are actually contributing to this. So it's not like Hedera has been adopted widely in a way that's contributing massive TPS to the network, but still it's getting some of that usage so far. And that's better than what some other L1s out there can say, especially other L1s that have been targeting enterprises. Hedera has been standing above those notably in terms of its usage so far. So in my opinion, we still remain in a more speculative phase, obviously, but these are the steps that you'd like to see. You'd like to see these continue to come out. And what I'd really like to see is more and more of these pieces of news continue to come, and ideally more and more rapidly, because that would suggest that acceleration of adoption is happening that could really launch Hedera into the next phase. I think these are good initial steps. We're going to want to see more, but certainly it's a good sign. And so this market reaction kind of says it all. I don't personally see this as meaning that we're just going to go flying off onto another big bull run. Again, fundamentally, this is not something that means that massive amount of money is imminently going to be flowing into the network and driving up demand for HBAR from actually utility perspective. Sure, speculation could come in, but from actual utility perspective, actual usage, that's not necessarily the case. But it is a great next step, basically, for Hedera. And it's another step along that thesis of enterprise adoption, which I think is important. Now, the few other things that I wanted to talk about here as well, another thing that's interesting in terms of context is that all of these news outlines in this following of the thesis is also happening at a time when there's some other reasons why being bullish on HBAR might be reasonable. So over here, I'm on our website, partydigital.io. Link is in the description if you're interested. And I'm showing you our forecast model for HBAR. So if you're not familiar or haven't seen this before, our forecast model basically gives us the probability of upside 6 months in the future. So basically, wherever you stand at a given point in time, how likely does the model think it is that the price of HBAR will be higher than it is right now 6 months in the future? And you'll notice that during this prior bull market here, the forecast model got extremely bullish, especially leading into this big parabolic move. And then it got extremely bearish leading into the bear market. So even as HBAR was setting its all-time high, forecast model is getting extremely bearish, going all the way down here to only 6% chance of upside 6 months in the future. And indeed, down we went. But importantly, kind of going into this year, we've seen this really rebound to the upside. And currently, as this news has dropped, we're sitting at around 80% chance of upside in 6 months from the model's estimate. So not 100%, but a heck of a lot better than 6%. And so what this might suggest is that if you're going to have a bias on HBAR, that it might be more reasonable to think that up is the easier direction for it to go than down. Not to say it can't go down. Again, 80% is not 100, and 20% chance likelihood things happen all the time. They happen 20% of the time, just by definition. But certainly what it's saying is that being bullish is probably more reasonable than being bearish if you had to pick a side. And so if broader markets allow, if we don't get stock market falling off a cliff or other things in crypto really nuking us, it does seem reasonable to think that up is the more plausible direction. And certainly HBAR has been showing that so far. We've been in a local uptrend ever since June, and this seems to just be continuing. What I might expect is for us to correct off of these levels, even if we go a bit higher, hopefully find a higher low, higher high, etc., continue moving to the upside. And that might be a relatively healthy market structure to go on, not just some crazy rip that then gives up a lot of its gains later on. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Now, the final thing I do just want to mention from a longer term perspective, I just think this bears mentioning with any altcoin, so I'll mention it here with Hedera, is what's going on with supply if we're thinking about what Hedera might be able to do going forward, especially in terms of can it get back to prior all-time highs and break them. One thing that I talked about before with HBAR, and I'm just going to reiterate it here because I think it's important to keep in mind, is that the circulating supply of HBAR has really rapidly accelerated ever since 2021. You'll notice how much HBAR has hit the market. This is the circulating supply, approximation of circulating supply. I calculated this by taking the market cap of HBAR divided by the price. Market cap is calculated by price times circulating supply. So market cap divided by price gives you an estimate of circulating supply. So that's what this is here. And you'll also notice this massive increase. Just looking at September of 21 up through where we are now, it's about a 430% chance, just under that, increase in the supply. And the reason I bring this up is just that when we think about HBAR moving back up in price, we have to keep in mind there's a lot more supply in the market. And so there'll need to be considerably more demand to get us back up to those same prices we were at before. Last time we hit this all-time high back in September of 21, we were sitting down at our market cap somewhere around 6.4 billion. We're now up at around 32.8 billion. So a massive increase. And so that just means that we need a lot more demand. And so that goes back to what we've been talking about with enterprise adoption, is that to think that HBAR is going to get up to this level easily and to clear it easily, you need to think that there's going to be a lot of new demand coming in for HBAR to get us up there. And one of the ways that could happen is if it gets a lot more actual adoption. And then what could really happen is that you combine that with a new bull market down the line where a lot of speculators come in. They might take a look around and say, okay, which assets do I like? Especially people who haven't been in crypto. They might just look around and say, which assets look good? They might see that Hedera is getting a lot of adoption, has a lot of fundamental strength, and say, that's the asset that I want to speculate on. That's the one I think I'm going to bet is going to go up in the future. And that can then bring in a lot of that speculative demand to bring things up. So again, that would rely on us seeing that next bull market and rely on these fundamental factors continuing. But that's one thing to keep an eye on. And so not only is this bullish from a fundamental perspective, but you also have to keep in mind of just how a market will react to that kind of information as well. Because demand not only comes from actual usage, but also a lot from speculation, especially so far in crypto. And so that's where, for me personally, I'd like to continue to see these kind of news stories break related to HBAR, to continue to think that despite the supply headwind that it has, and make no mistake, this is a headwind. It will be harder for it to get back to its all-time high now than it was back here. But if you see some of that happening, it might be able to offset this. And that's really where we'll have to keep an eye on things. Are the developments enough to make us think that the new demand that could come into this space is sufficient to offset this relatively bearish, massive increase in supply that we've seen with HBAR? So those are a few things that I'm thinking of. So overall, I think it's undoubtedly this is good news. I don't think you can interpret it as anything else. But I think it's also important just to take it in context of everything else that's going on when we think about where HBAR might be going from here. All right, if you like the content, remember to subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, and follow us on Twitter. And if you want to see our models, such as our Hedera Hashgraph forecast model and more, go over to our website, PolarityDigital.io, and sign up to our Polarity Digital Pro subscription service, only $15 a month right now, which we think is an absolute steal. Get access to all of these data live and more.